Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. And depending on your vintage, it probably brought you back to your youth a little bit, especially when she mentioned new music and co-hosting with JD Roberts. Um, and now to present day. Our next segment is the retailer panel, and I'd like to introduce you to them now. Our moderator is Frank D'Alessio, Director of Sales of Cougar Shoes. And on the panel, we have Peter O'Donnell, Director of Purchasing with Work Authority, Rob Zonneveld, Buyer and Manager of Algonquin Outfitters, Peter Moore, owner of Shoetopia, and Kelly Grady of Grady Essentials. I'm going to fade into the background now and enjoy the panel. Thanks, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We get to follow Jeannie Becker. Hello, Peter, Melanie.
Frank. Well, good afternoon, I guess now.
Good afternoon, yeah. I'd like to start off the segment with basically, I want you guys each to introduce yourselves, just tell us like 15 seconds about yourselves, and also more of the personal touch. How are you coping through this pandemic? Peter, let's start with you.
I'm with the Director of Purchasing for Work Authority, have been for 30 plus years. Work Authority is obviously a specialty retailer, and during the pandemic, it's just for us, it's business has been as usual once we get through the first 6 weeks, but it has been a little more challenging during this time, that's for sure.
And how have you been coping through this, like personally? What have you done anything special to?
Well, just like most of us probably, we work from home, which has been a real challenge as far as at first, you know, it was just the lack of communication and the team building and all that kind of stuff. But I think the rest of society, you follow the protocols out there. And,
yeah, you make it through. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Kelly Grady from Grady Essentials. How are you?
Great. It's Grady's Feet Essentials. Just we lost the feet in there. So yeah, we have my husband and I own a comfort shoe store in Peterborough, Ontario, and so we're well aligned for what people are looking for. I think right now in this COVID world, they're looking for comfortable footwear. So the way we're coping is just, we're adapting, we're being nimble and changing as needed and making sure we have what our customers need before they realize they need it.
Right. I think besides the term new normal, I think the second most used term is a fluid situation. You're constantly changing on the go. So, and Peter Moore, we've got two Peters on the panel here. Peter, how have you been coping? And just introduce yourself, please.
Sure, yeah. I'm Peter Moore, and we own a couple of shoe stores, one in Ferguson, one in Mount Forest. And, we're comfort shoe stores as well. So, I mean, we've managed okay. I mean, I think one of the things that's really worked to our benefit is that both of our stores are in small town. And we've had a lot of great response from our local people, and it's been really heartwarming. I'm not saying we're doing the numbers we want to do, but ultimately, we've coped fairly well through this whole thing, and it's been a battle trying to get through stuff. I know we're going to talk bunch of the stuff down the road here in the conversation, but you know what, we're doing okay. And the biggest thing is we're staying in touch with our customers and making sure that we have, to the best of our ability, what they need to keep everything rolling, keep them happy, right?
Right. And so how you've been coping, I guess you've probably lowered your handicap quite a bit, staying on the golf course. And
yeah, well, as a golfer, once a year at the 210, I haven't been out on the course this year, but I do a lot of Zoom. We always have in the last few years. I have a few other businesses, so I'm always busy, always talking to people. And it's good just to be with people, whether it's virtually or whether it's personally. So I try to get out and I make a point of seeing people that I haven't seen and that I'm used to seeing. So I think that's how I've coped, is I've actually made a point of reaching out to people instead of letting them reach out to me.
And finally, we've got Rob Zonneveld from Algonquin Outfitters. Rob, you just give us a brief introduction to yourself and how have you been coping through this pandemic?
Rob, buyer and a manager at Algonquin Outfitters. Been with this company on and off multiple times. Gone off on excursions and returned back to this place.
Sorry, Rob, can you just turn up your mic just a bit? Because I think I see Melanie adjusting there too. I can hear a little bit.
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, coping with it. It was pretty interesting at first. Stayed home because we were all on lockdown and multiple Zoom meetings a day. I've got a few committees for our store, the buyer committee, a store manager committee, and our e-com committee. So lots of Zoom meetings. And I got out on lots of hikes.
Yeah,
Lots of walks.
that's a big trend right now. I mean, that market is just, you guys must be doing great. Thank you. So I'm just gonna, what we're gonna do is we're gonna, I won't pose every question to every panelist, but there's a couple really important things that I think we need to cover. There's listening to us there's obviously a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of retailers out there listening. So the information that we're going to share today is going to be helpful for everybody. So now I know I've got two Peters, so I'll start with I'll start with Peter or Donald for this question. What type of vendor support have you gotten, and has it been adequate?
This vendor support, I think at first was the communication was lacking. I think everybody was still trying to deal with how to use Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And I think once it came, the communications have got much better. And I found the vendors, as stock availability became an issue, as product wasn't coming in or orders have been canceled, especially from offshore, things like that. Then they started communicating to you. So they support you, giving you different ideas, what you could sell. So I think that was the biggest thing, was getting that communication going much better than maybe it was before, even because of Zoom and things like that. You didn't have to, I think it was in our business, the industrial, I think it was much more in-person meetings and all that, but I think the Zoom, you can do it much quicker. You have multiple Zooms a day, but you can jump around from Zoom to Zoom, see more people. I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, there's no traffic when you have to go from meeting to meeting is what we're saying.
Yeah. Other than refilling your coffee cup or whatever, you can carry on. So I think that was the biggest part, that you could actually get communications going much quicker. It took, I think it was that 5-6 weeks. I think we'd all admit that was people were just wondering where all this was going with the COVID, and that first 5-6 weeks, everybody was just scrambling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the uncertainty was, nobody knew. I was on several webinars, especially right at the beginning, and I think I listened to every CEO across both countries, and everybody admitted there's no playbook for this.
Yeah.
Kelly, how have suppliers supported your business, and was it enough? And what would you need from suppliers?
So a lot of them were quite good in the beginning with giving extended terms, giving discounts if you agreed to take things that they knew you probably didn't need, holding orders and while we were shut down. And so those kind of things right away were really appreciated. And that, I think the biggest challenge for us has been getting the inventory that we need in a timely manner. And not all our suppliers have been good at that, or communicating their challenges of why something is not arriving on time. Like, I would prefer to not have to reach out to them and ask them where my order is. I would rather they be proactive and say, okay, here's the situation. We can't get whatever X thing, but it is coming by this date we expect. that kind of stuff. Whereas I've found I was having to reach out to people and confirm things and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I find that very frustrating. One of the my biggest pet peeves is you don't know this is late. If I'm shipping you tomorrow, you knew this was late 2 months ago. It didn't
Yeah.
leave the factory yesterday. So,
Yeah.
uh, Rob, what type of support have you gotten out of your vendors? Because you have a little different a little different base than Peter Moore does.
So pretty similar to Kelly's, it was better terms or your unique terms if we could ask them like, hey, can we pay for this way, or working with us on that. Discounts were definitely dished out pretty heavily. It's funny, for some of our other buyers, they had some discounts like the outdoor side of it, like Patagonia and North Face and those guys. Those guys raised the bar and said, hey, we're just going to give you this discount on stuff that shipped pre-shutdown, and on anything that's coming after we're back open, you'll get these discounts. So they sort of started that trend for us. So that gave me leverage to go to my brand and be like, hey, this is what these guys are doing for payment or discounts or stuff like that. So that helped me leverage some discounts out of my vendors to keep the margin high.
Cool. Peter Moore, what do you need from the vendors? What more?
Well, I think, Kelly said it well. We need communication. And I think the biggest thing that we're dealing with right now is the unknown. And it's very hard to make business decisions, and it doesn't matter what business you're in, if you don't have clarity. And I think the clarity of communication is lacking from almost every level. And it's better, and that's great. But the next step, because it looks as though we're going to be doing this for another year, what's the next step? And I think that's the thing that everybody on the retailer side is really looking for. Like, how can we be as clear about where we're at so that we can make the decisions we need to make? And I mean, we have getting back to, I mirror everything everybody else says. But one of the other nice things that I was able to get from one of my suppliers was a pack and hold. I mean, the stuff that was pack and held is going to be good next year too. But the fact of the matter is I didn't need to winter it. So because it came in so late. So that was one of the things that I found helpful. And yeah, we're going to carry it next year. And yeah, it's going to affect next year's sales for my particular rep in that brand because we're not going to buy it again, but we wouldn't have sold it anyway. So one way or the other, that was one of the things that I think wasn't mentioned that I just thought I would add in there.
Yeah. So,
yeah, Frank, that was a big thing, I think, probably for all of us, that the vendors did step up in a lot of cases and hold some product for us, knowing that we were good for it down the road. And it just, it does affect, but, we all probably went through a good period of time there where there's not a lot of sales. So
for sure,
there wasn't going to be product being ordered anyway. So that was a great benefit for us.
So we'll stick with product. Like I know, during the shutdown, we probably had 5 or 6 Zoom meetings a day, as you guys were saying, trying to figure out what's the next step. What are we doing from the vendor side? How has your buying changed, and have you adapted to the online presentations? Rob, we'll start with you on that one.
I've done one Zoom presentation, and it was unique. Lighting wasn't as good. They say it's green, but you can't tell what color of green it is. It's out of the box. That's interesting. But most of my brands that I've seen for spring and summer already, I've either done in a hotel conference room because they've rented out and they can control the traffic flow, or I've gone to a small trade show, and again, like super spaced out. So I've still had the benefit of being able to go and touch and feel and look at the real color of green. And so I've had the benefit of being able to still kind of do what we've done in the past.
So you obviously prefer still the touch and feel. Like you're,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a clothing buyer, so I kind of need to sort of be able to put planograms together or color schemes together, or that's going to look good on a wall in terms of the presentation when it's up there. So yeah, I mean, in some of my big guys or my guys I'm comfortable with, and we can look at sales reports. Um, like for an example, like a Billabong crossover short or Crossfire short, it's a strong seller, and black and khaki are the same black and khaki you bought 80 times. So you're like, yeah, I can buy that off of a B2B dealer site.
so your milk and bread items, as I like to call them, your repeats are very easy to do, obviously. But so Kelly, what's been your experience with your online presentations, and how have you been buying?
Well, personally, I like online presentations. It wastes a lot less time, when you don't have to do the traveling, and also it's sort of like you get more down to business quickly. Though I agree with Rob, sometimes it's a bit of a challenge when you can't really tell what the colors look like. And also for us, because we're all about comfort, and I'm a sample size foot, so I like trying stuff on and knowing how it's going to feel, and knowing that it's going to be right for our customers. So I've missed doing that. We have had some of our suppliers come to town and set up in a hotel. Some have come to us at our store, and that sort of thing. I like that. It's pretty safe, and we have a chance to see things, and that's been helpful. But generally, in terms of buying itself, we've been doing a lot less buying for next year. So that's been a bit of a challenge, I think, for our vendors, that we don't need as much for next year as they would hope we would, and we're a little risk averse right now, with new styles and new colors and that sort of thing, focusing more on our core items that carry us.
That's a great point. That's actually one of my next questions, but you've already covered it. I do want to pose this question to all four of you. So Peter O'Donnell, how's your buying going, and how's your experience online?
As Kelly says, the Zoom is good that way. As far as I find, it's a much more straightforward, an hour, 2 hours, you can cover the whole thing, whereas before it could be a half day or whatever. But with new product, I definitely like the touch and feel. I've had some of my vendors send me samples ahead of the meeting, then I send them back, which has worked out very well. We're part of a corporation and we don't allow, they're not allowing us to have individual meetings with vendors. So that's out of the question for us. So I come into our office once a week, and somebody sent samples over, you go through it and have your Zoom meeting at the same time. And then I think we all want to touch and feel, especially new product. And a lot, ours is in the safety footwear category, and it's comfort is a big thing, but flexibility and all that kind of stuff. And you just can't get that from a Zoom call and somebody holding something up or showing it on a table. So that has been, so any of the vendors that have done that, it's certainly more likely to get orders, that's for sure, because you do have the product in front of you. A few of the other instances, you kind of like, you're hesitant of ordering, especially something new. Core product that's just ongoing, that isn't an issue. And it's a quick discussion usually with your vendor, just make sure sales are still, you're going to still buy it for next year and things like that. So,
right now, I know with our presentations and with a lot of the people on here, the presentations, they've gone out and spent a lot of money on equipment and so on and so forth. So Peter Moore, have you found the presentations helpful, or do you still think you'd like to go back to in person?
Ultimately, I'd like to go back to in person, but I'm perfectly good with digital. We are working through that. I do a lot of digital stuff already and have for the last several years. So I'm good with digital presentations, and sort of to mirror everybody else, it's like I do want to touch and feel the stuff. So I did attend a regional show this year, and I had already done digital presentations in advance. And when I went to the digital show, or when I went to the regional show, I literally just went in and literally touched and try, focused on those 3 or 4 pieces or 10 pieces that I wanted to see that were new. So it made those meetings much more efficient as well. It was sort of a combination.
Just to confirm what you were feeling online, and I think it does say a lot. I'm a salesman, obviously, so I really like the interaction. I feel that I can present the product. One of the things is just handing it to the customer so that you can feel it. So I think that part of it is gone. I do think that these Zoom presentations will go forward, but I think there will be a combination of both things going forward. I want to kind of switch the conversation to how you guys are staffing your stores. What challenges have you had with bringing staff back, and what's been their hesitation? Rob, do you want to start with that question?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the locations that I manage in the summer is in our Port Carling location. And I got blessed with having my returning dream team. I think, the downside of that is COVID affected their jobs that they were going to, and that fell through. And, I got blessed with having them all back. Some of our other locations have had struggles due to, COVID, the payment, the stay-at-home payment,
Sure. Yeah.
amount of hours. Or we did have a couple that just wouldn't show up because they were,
Now the staff that came back, were they assured that they were quote unquote safe?
at our location.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had done the whole, face mask, the whole PPE stuff that we had to do for all our locations. And, we went over an internal document that we've made up of like processes that we have to do as staff, close to each other, plus with customers when they're in the store, and controlling our traffic flow through our stores. We had a cap of how many people could be in each store.
Peter O'Donnell, I want you to answer this question next. How many staff would you say that you have, and what were your challenges bringing them back?
Well, we're a national retail, so we're right across pretty well every province. So 40 retail stores, and we were deemed essential business in most provinces. So other than the first couple of weeks when we were basically shut down, we started opening up some of the stores, and we had a real issue of then getting staff to work the stores, because as part of a corporation, our corporate owners were paying our full-time and part-time retail people to basically be at home. They weren't mandating that they go back. So some people looked at that as a bit of an opportunity, and with the uncertainty, didn't want to go back. We found the store managers definitely wanted to be there. So in a lot of cases, we were open shortened hours, and it wasn't until kind of May that comes around that people started to adjust to, and parts of the country started to open up a little bit more, that we could get our part-time and other staff would come back in. So it was a real challenge for us to keep the stores open. And as I said, a lot of stores we couldn't keep open. And as time went by, I think as we all adjusted to this, and people realized that, we're gonna have to learn to work within the guidelines that are out there, the safety protocols. We had all the safety protocols in effect as far as social distancing, so many people in the stores, and we had a few stores in Mississauga and places like that. Yeah, we had lineups just like you saw at the grocery stores too. So it was I think it was more of a challenge of with the part-time people, of getting them to come back to work.
Right. Kelly, what was your experience with your staff in Peterborough?
Well, I think our biggest challenge was addressing their safety concerns, because we have a lot of really dedicated, mature staff members, but some of them have health risks, and their family members do also. So we did have one staff member who just chose to retire. She just, it was too much to consider coming back. And another one who was part-time, where you know, she wasn't prepared to come back either. And luckily for us, because we're in a mall and the mall reduced its hours once we were able to open. So we had less staff, but we also had less need for staff. So we were actually able to keep up a good number of hours for the staff that were coming back. And so it was worth it for them to come back. And then we really went out of our way to try to make sure we did as much as possible to ensure that our, you know, our store was as safe as possible. We removed some displays. We custom built like a plexiglass rolling divider that they could put between themselves and the customers. And we only allow, you know, a certain number of people in the store at a time. And all those things met their needs to ensure that they were safe, and so that they were able to come back.
Thank you. Peter Moore, sorry. In your two locations, what were your staffing challenges? And did your staff feel safe when they came back?
Yes, they did right off the bat. We've health marketed right from day one. I actually opened another business called Sandy Mist at the same time because I used to be in the janitorial business. So to help that sort of stuff. So we marketed that through to our clients, client facing, but also was a big part of the comfort level of our team coming back in, knowing that everything was done properly and looked after. So from that perspective, we have full retention of our entire team, with the exception of one person. And we just didn't need that extra person to come back yet. Maybe we will. She's still, waiting basically, and she wasn't in a position that she really needed the job. So she elected to hold off. And then one other person did go and find another job while she was waiting to be called back. But other than that, we have full retention at both stores of all the other people. So we haven't actually had to look for anybody, thankfully. And our team is back and willing to work and moving ahead. So from all perspective there, we've been very fortunate and very grateful that our entire team's intact, essentially.
Okay, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of retailers listening in, and there's a lot of vendors, a lot of your sales reps listening in. So one of the questions that a lot of the vendors / sales reps are struggling with is you have a number, a very few, you have a limited number of people allowed in your store. Peter Moore, I'll stay with you on this one. What is your take on having your reps coming to your store?
Well, it used to be called the Shoe Travelers Association, right? So I'm all for it. I'm good with in-store. And quite honestly, I'm an early bird, and we usually make appointments for before the store's open. So it's not like you're having appointment after appointment after appointment all day long throughout the day. So if your store opens at 9, make an appointment for 8 o'clock or 7:30 or whatever the case is, or do it after hours. The reps have been very good that way for those that are coming out. And typically I like doing that. I find it's good. We can look at our existing, and we also get a chance to have a chat with our rep in our store. And for that, it's a double whammy for me when reps get a chance to come and display display their goods in our store, because we can then really, as opposed to at the trade show, we can then actually have a conversation about what our other offering is and how they fit in and all the other stuff that goes along with it, because it's hard to do at a trade show or even on a Zoom meeting. So I like it.
Okay. Kelly, I'd like to pose the same question to you. What's your take on having sales reps coming to your store in this pandemic time?
Well, I would say we do like having them come by, but not surprise visits. So we like to have an appointment set ahead of time, so that we know it's an appropriate time when we're there, that we can focus on what they have to show us or what they want to talk about. And we also like it if they limit themselves to, an hour, and not be dominating our time longer than is necessary. Sometimes it's hard to politely move people along. So respecting our time is a huge thing for when they come to visit.
Yeah, get out works pretty good for most. Some sales reps do not understand that. I get that. I know quite a few of them. Rob, what's your take on I mean, you obviously seems like you've had a lot more personal visits, and you've had what's your take on a rep coming to your store?
I'm pretty much along the same lines as most of the other people. as long as we have an appointment set up either earlier or later in the day or after hours, and we just stay focused. In our location that I work out of, in the winter, in our Huntsville location, we have some space where that's not on the floor. It's in our shipping receiving. It's not ideal. It's not pretty and it's not comfortable, but we've definitely done a few presentations, quick ones down there. So as long as, again, we have a plan and we execute it, I don't have a problem with people coming to the store.
Great. I want to just kind of switch back to product again, because I've got a couple questions here. You guys have kind of talked, Peter, yeah, Peter Moore.
Yeah, Frank, I just wanted to follow up on that one too. And I think that's a good spot to come in off the Zoom meeting as well, right? So if you have the Zoom meeting and then you're following up with the 5 or 6 pieces from a sales rep, they're not coming in with their 18 rolly carts. They're coming in with literally the 18 pieces you want to see. So that's really a good way of doing the double whammy of having, let's do the virtual presentation and then come to my store and do a presentation of the particular pieces that we've already determined we want to go through.
Right, almost reconfirming what you think you're interested in. That's that's a great point. I know with Peter O'Donnell, you have 40 stores, so the reality is not all vendors have 40 sets of 30 sets of samples. So when you have 4 stores, it's a little easier to send you samples back and forth, but it is a lot more difficult when, like I said, the vendors do not have that many samples. In fact, as challenging as the factories have been, because this is a worldwide pandemic. It's not Canada, US, it's a worldwide pandemic. The factories have had many challenges with samples, obviously with production, as we talked about earlier, if the goods are coming or if they're not coming. One of the things that has been challenging has been the samples, because again, it's the same people that make the shoes that make the samples. Peter, what products, Peter O'Donnell, what products how's your buying changed in the sense of going forward? Are you willing to try new things? Are you looking at some, what's your buying habit right now?
I think it's kind of not looking to try new things quite as much, especially new brands, trying to stay with the stable of brands that we do have, support them as they hopefully have been supporting us through this time. So not looking, unless somebody really had something really amazing, not looking, trying to outside the box at this point in time. I'm finding, for spring 21, there wasn't a lot of new product that was showcased. We're just starting fall 21 now, so I think there will be a little bit more, just because spring 21 was just starting to go to bed back when this all started. So I think a lot of vendors did cut back on what they were going to even offer for spring 21, knowing there wouldn't be a lot of buy-in because of the lack of sales for a period of time. So, but as I said, I'm trying to just support the people we do now business with and go forward from there.
Kelly, do you find that there was, just to continue with Peter O'Donnell's point, do you find that you didn't have enough newness, and would you have preferred more?
No, I think there was enough newness for what we were looking for, honestly. The reality is right now, like I agree with Peter, it's like you got to focus on those brands that have really carried you along and maintain those good relationships and keep selling those things. And so if they come out with a variation of something is great, yeah, that's color or whatever, that's an easy one to try. But if you're trying to sell us on a whole new thing that we're going to have to sell to our customer, like the reality is our customers don't want to spend much time in our store right now, so it's hard to sell them new things. They want the familiar. They quite often are coming in, just give me the same thing I had before and let me get out of here kind of thing, So it's a different kind of selling environment, and we have to adapt to that. So the really new things and new brands, we're hesitant right now.
Peter Moore, did you find that you had enough selection? And you referred to that you had to we call it locker stock it, like you basically packed away some of your spring 21 goods.
Yep.
Obviously your buying has been adjusted. You know, you're not gonna, you're not gonna buy as much, but did you find that there was enough newness, or did you prefer more?
We had plenty of newness, and the reality of it is that a lot of our in-store shoppers never saw the stuff from this year anyway. Much like Kelly was saying, they would dive in on a need basis, not even walk around the store. I'm diving in to grab my whatever it is, my Blundstone, my Merrell, my New Balance, and I'm going to dive in. I know what I want. I might have to try that one pair on, and then I'm leaving. So unlike the browse, let's take a little pop into the store and see what's new. Very little of that this year. So I for the most part, a lot of the people, if we get to that stage even by next spring, where they're ready to come and browse and look around, they'll be looking at things that we had this year, not as though, oh, I saw that last year. They'll be looking at them as though saying, wow, this is pretty cool. So for the most part, I don't think that that we are lacking with any sort of newness.
Yeah, the great thing is I mean, obviously our core products in all your stores are core products, so that that goes forward. But even the fashion aspect will look fairly new to them. Now, Rob, your business is a little bit different because I like the outdoor business has been probably one of the businesses that has benefited. How much newness did you see for your buying? Was it sufficient? Was it not enough?
Spring, there was definitely a lot of carryover from a previous season, whether it was a holiday season or a fall or previous 20 spring. So there was a fair amount of carryover there. So the good side of that is if you had successful sell through on it, you could just repeat it again because you already had it and you know that that was the home run and you can buy it in a larger quantity. For our bigger season, which is summer, there was a ton of newness, which is where I would say I would put more risk into some of my buys. Like spring, we get in April or March or something like that, or even a little earlier. Those were where I would be like, my Billabong Crossfire short. Like I know I have it, I know I sell it, that's a staple. Then I would sprinkle in, more fashion, more newness, maybe even riskier things for my summer buys. And I found in our area, we had, like, as soon as we were allowed to open our doors, which was really surprising to us when we saw this, was we had the browsers. We had the people that were just anxious to be out of their house and stop playing video games. And they were walking around like it was normal. They were looking through all the hangers, touching everything and trying stuff on. It was like normal shopping right out of the gate for us.
Yeah, the one thing that was talked about a lot in a lot of these webinars was the quote unquote pent up demand for sure. Peter, you were involved in a webinar probably a few months ago, and Peter Moore, and one of the things that was really discussed was, after they try something on, what happens to that product after they try something on? How is that going?
For us, we haven't wavered. We're still disinfecting tried on shoes, and we started doing that, and we are still doing it. So we have a product that we use, and we do that with every pair of tried on shoes. We quarantine them for a certain amount of time, put them back, and so all of that, again, getting back to that sort of safety marketing side of things, it's one of the things our customers have really appreciated. It's been a talking point. It's been a level of comfort for them. There's a certain amount of theatrics that are involved, and we talked about that back then too, Frank. There's a certain amount of theatrics that are involved to make the customer feel comfortable. And, they see the station there and they're like, what is that? And it's like, well, that's where we're sanitizing everything. And that's, we want to make sure that we're doing this. And we are. And, we have try on areas and we sanitize and we have all the stuff there. So all those different areas, we have not fallen off of that. And nor do I plan on until literally this has gone away. We're going to hold that up for the comfort of our clients and our staff.
Right. Peter O'Donnell, what's your focus? It kind of leads me into my next question. What's your focus? Is it like, are you marketing more your brand, or are you marketing more, hey, we're a safe place to come? What's your focus in your marketing?
Right now, we're marketing it's a safe place to come to. We find, going back to what Peter and Kelly were saying, people that come into our store, our conversion rate has never been higher and will probably never be this high anyways. So if they've come to the store, we're probably, they're buying. They're not usually walking out without product in their hand. They're just not there to try on shoes and then go someplace else and try on more shoes. So we follow all the same protocols that Peter was saying, like even when shoes are returned, even through e-commerce and all that, we sanitize them, then we quarantine them for a period of time before they go into circulation again. So yeah, so it's just a combination of trying to make people safe. If they're in the store, yeah, they usually have an idea what brand they're after when they come in, or what type of footwear. You can do a little bit of marketing, but that's just done by the salesperson in the store.
Kelly, I want to ask you this question along the safety issue. Have you experienced anybody that has come into your store and did not want to wear a mask, and how would you approach that?
Well, there's in our city, the health unit has basically said, if somebody can't wear a mask for health reasons, then obviously we can't make them, And so we've had customers call and say, well, I have this health issue. I can't wear a mask. What are you going to do? And usually, like, we're doing free delivery locally, and we're doing curbside pickup from our offices. So our preference is to handle it that way, so they're not coming in. But the reality is we will let somebody come in if it's for a short period of time, as long, if they're physically incapable of wearing it, but it's very rare. We're having more of an issue. We ask people to use hand sanitizer before they come in the store. And one of my staff said, like, she actually had a nightmare the other night about people yelling at her about using hand sanitizer. Because we're in a mall, I think the reality is most of the stores in the mall are asking for use of hand sanitizer. And so they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be drunk. I'm using so much hand sanitizer. Or just some people are just belligerent about it. And so that the hand sanitizer has actually been a bigger issue for our staff than the mask. The mask, we got really good buy-in, I think.
Yeah, I find I know exactly what you're referring to in the mall, because if you're going through 10 stores, I think one of the sayings was, this is the first time in history we're putting more alcohol on our hands and in our bodies as Canadians. But I find that that's a challenge in the malls. But I the way I've gotten around it is every store that I go into, I just put a little dab in, or you kind of, especially if you know that you haven't touched anything, just put a tiny little dab and it works. Rob, have you had any experience with customers, not believing in this and saying, I'm not wearing a mask?
No, they usually have the saying on the mask, that this mask is as useless as the politician that made me wear it, kind of scenario.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've seen a few of those on people. Most people, have been really good at it, wearing masks or asking if we have masks for them. We, in my Port Carden location, we didn't have disposable masks. We had retail masks for people to buy. So I would say, yeah, they're right here, and they were right by the door, and people could come in and we could take a mobile Menaris machine out to them outside on the boardwalk. And but I haven't had any issues. I've had one person that said, hey, just announced when they got to the door saying, like, I have a health issue, I can't wear a mask, am I okay to come in? And we weren't very busy at the time, so I was like, yeah, I appreciate you telling me that, and yeah, for sure, come on in and make yourself at home.
Yeah, I think you have to, it's a very sensitive topic, like I said, especially there's a group out there that is, not believing in everything that's going on, and there's a lot of resistance. But Peter O'Donnell, what would you find is your biggest triumph through this entire pandemic? What's your what's your struggle and what's your triumph through this?
I guess because the struggles right now is inventory for us. It wasn't certainly in the beginning. Now we've come to fall. Our business has been, because we are a specialty type business, has been very strong. And it's just now we're running into issues that our core products, our top sellers aren't in stock at our vendors. I probably didn't provide enough booking orders. That's one thing you wish you'd beforehand had done maybe a little stronger, but you just kind of been doing this for a number of years and you just kind of go with the flow. And so we're running into some serious inventory issues on very popular product, and consumers don't always understand it. You can use COVID as an excuse, but they don't always understand, like it's going to be 2 months, 3 months. And even your salespeople don't, store managers don't understand that kind of stuff. So
How could you not know exactly how many pairs of that shoe to sell? Peter, come on.
Well, yeah, no, it's just kind of, even I'm sure we all kind of looked in April and reforecast even our thoughts going through the rest of the year. And, as I said, with a number of stores that we had, of course, in budgets and all that, we downgraded them. And then all of a sudden the pent up demand came and it's just kind of carried on, and we keep on selling, and it's kind of back for us, it's back to normal. And as far as business wise, but the product isn't there to support us at the back end. Right. So you're having to adjust, and your salespeople have to sell what is available, because there's always product. You're never out of product.
Yeah. There, you know what, through this, there was a, March, April where I think what happened is a lot of people some people adjusted their fall orders. Yeah. And then June and July, they kind of looked and they said, oh no, I don't have enough. But by that time, it's very difficult for the vendors to, it's not a magic switch, or they got the elves in the back making those products. So there were some people like there wasn't a waking hour that I didn't spend in what are we bringing in, what are we not bringing in, and sometimes it was the factories deciding that, not the people.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it was and the retailer. You always kind of felt even that pent up demand was there in June and all that kind of stuff in July. Like there's going to be it's going to level off again. It's going to go down afterwards. But for us, it really hasn't. So now, deliveries now, January, February is going to be products going to be available then but that's still a few months off.
But let's end with you on a high note. What's your triumph? What's one thing you can say, through this pandemic, this is what I did?
I think we've got rid of a lot more of our obsolete inventory, discontinued stuff.
We can call them spiffs. Everybody on here knows what a spiff is.
Okay. I think we've been able to move a lot of that out there, get it into our retail stores. We also have an online presence, so we've been able to focus some of that product on there, because our e-com business has grown substantially. And people are shopping that way, so we've been able to move product that way. So I think that's been our biggest. We've been able to bring down that obsolete listing, as they say. Whereas when normal times, it just kind of keeps sitting there, and you just keep selling the other stuff.
Right. Kelly, do you want to tackle that question? What's your struggle and what's your triumph through this pandemic?
I'd say our biggest struggle was just trying to figure out what is the safest way to do business, because I just feel like we receive a lot of mixed messages, and the government wasn't always clear, the health unit wasn't always clear. It was like, it would have been so helpful if they're just like, this is what you need to do, and nobody was really willing to do that. So that uncertainty on whether we're doing everything as safe as possible.
Just on that note, how are you communicated what to do? How did did you go to a website? Did you get did somebody come to your store? How were you communicated?
Our major communicators were CFIB, information from CFIB, and also our local Chamber of Commerce. were also our best resources. I found it really surprising, like the government wasn't reaching out to us at all, but thankfully we're members of, CFIB and Chamber of Commerce, and they were helpful.
And what's your biggest triumph through this whole pandemic? What are you proud of? What have you done that has made a difference?
Well, I have to say, my husband and I are both always forward thinkers, and we've been expecting an economic downturn for a while, and we've been preparing our business for that to happen, that we'd be prepared for that. And also knowing what our number one brands are and making sure we always have them in stock. So we took a risk, and when people were canceling orders in the spring, we were bumping ours up. And because we knew they would always sell, and we knew there was probably going to be a shortage. So unlike Peter O'Donnell, sorry, Peter, but we actually did buy up extra, and that has really helped us. As a small business, we got people calling from other cities, contacting us online to get things that they can't find anywhere else, and they can't believe we have it, but it's because we had the forethought and we had the cash reserves to purchase it and be ready.
Now, are you online also?
Yes, we are. We'd actually just redid our website in January, February, and we're trying to get everything up to speed as things were shutting down. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's always a challenge. Hey, Rob, what would you say is your most the part that you struggled with the most and your triumph, and also what's your online presence? Kind of three questions in there.
So for us, when we were shut down, we didn't cancel any orders. We just had them held, and then it was just getting product in a timely manner once the doors were allowed open, because there was no leeway. The government, on Friday of May, long weekend, says you're allowed to be open Tuesday. So it was kind of like get product released, get it through our ship and receiving and out to doors, out to our other locations. So that was a challenge. And then trying to keep product once you sell out of something, because the demand was so high. I was on buying sites weekly.
There you go.
Okay, but hold on a second, Trevor. I don't know how to do my right.
Oops. And then it was just a challenge to keep product, and we're still seeing that now, like cancellations from our vendors because their factory didn't make something. We're seeing a lot of snowbirds staying in this area, so we're already selling winter equipment, Nordic packages, snowshoes, all that stuff's already going out the door, and we bumped up those orders through the summer with anticipation of that trend continuing.
Well, that's something that we talked about a lot, Rob. Great point. We talked about the snowbirds. They didn't leave in October. They're here. They're going to need, more of the seasonable items. They're going to need those coats. They're going to need those hiking shoes. They're going to need those boots. There's going to be, so you've got the pent up demand. You've got less inventory in the market. And then you have more people, it seems like. We'll see how it ends up. Obviously the first, snowfall is when there's the big panic, and we'll see what happens there. But that's a great point about the snowbirds. It's one thing that we have had to adjust our inventories with also at Cougar. I did a Cougar plug there. So there we go. Peter Moore, we'll kind of end off with you. What would you, this is November 2019. What would your pre-COVID self, like how would you do anything differently before COVID?
Well, I saw that question and I was like, I hope you don't ask me that one. Anyway, I just as how I run my business, I always look ahead and always plan ahead, and I always kind of, review that sort of stuff. And I think there's not a whole lot that I would have done. There's things you can plan for and there's things you can't plan for. And this was something you couldn't plan for. And I think the biggest thing that we need to do as business owners is be prepared to make decisions that are tough. And we had to make decisions that are tough. And a lot of people that couldn't make those decisions early on, eh, are still feeling some of the pain there. And I think you need to be ready to move. You need to be agile and quick. You need to be, rolling through and understanding what you can do at the present time. Not necessarily what you're going to do for what happened in the past or what you're going to do for what happened in the future. And that's one of the things we started off the conversation today with about communication, because the best decisions are made when you have clarity of communication and you can get all of that information. So the biggest thing is making sure you're in constant communication with the people that are closest to you to help, your strategic partners, your brands, the people, the other suppliers in your store, your team, all of that sort of stuff, and keeping them in the know. One of the pain points that we have today is this communication thing. But if you're the employer, you need to be communicating to your team too. And they want to know what's going on so that they can feel comfortable and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's that idea of really living in the now when something like that happens, and making sure you're communicating as a leader, what the vision is moving ahead.
Well, I think the word that's been used the most today is communication, for sure. Like you're saying, as an owner, but I think the vendors listening should really take note of that. Is just let us know what's happening. So I want to thank all you guys for taking the time out of your busy day for doing this for us. I want to do a shameful plug. 210 Canada is in the process. We're going to be sending out, we're going to do our shoe drive this year. So there's a lot of people listening. So we take in donations, and then we also distribute them to all the charities. This year, more than any other year, obviously there's a talk about a pent up demand. So look for that email from 210 Canada. And again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time. Thank you for the people tuning in. And I wish you guys nothing but good health and success. And as we say in the seasonal business, let it snow. So guys, take care. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you for tuning in.